Hey, what's up? I am in fact alive. I've actually been woken up from my hibernation by the New Year's banner, and I'm not gonna say bad takes that have accompanied it, but I'm going to say questionable takes. So what I wanted to do was throw out my half-informed opinion out there into the world without care, as everybody does. I'm just going to start with what I know best, which is wind. So, Wrath. I was expecting Wrath to be pretty bad, considering his summon. I was expecting him to have some sort of mirror image gimmick, but they made him a charge attack character, and frankly, that's a lot better than I was expecting. He very clearly wants to be played in a Ogi Luke comp. He wants to constantly see his teammates charge attacking, etc. But unfortunately, his S1 and S2 don't have full uptime. Obviously, his S2 can have it, but how likely is it that you're not going to get hit more than 3 times in 12 turns? Pretty unlikely. Ogi Luke comps very much thrive on consistency, like consistently having, charge bar gain up at all times and boost a bar every single turn. And Wrath not providing that is kind of, it feels kind of bad. Like, it feels like he should have a cooldown cut somewhere in his kit on, like, maybe if you activate his first passive, he gets a cooldown cut to his first and second skills. But to be honest, not having it's not the end of the world. Wind has Katura, who can like carry 70% of an Ogi loop on her back by herself, and yeah, Wrath can just get carried. To be honest, his third skill just helps him start the loop on the first turn. And his first passive, which is the stack based thing that lets him deal damage once he reaches 8 stacks and a chain burst or a faded chain happens. It's a pretty good source of damage. With the example grid that I threw up in like 5 seconds, it managed to hit around, well, at least like 10 million every single time. But yeah, I mean, he does have Primarch passive, which does make him more valuable than his main point of comparison, Mirren, but other than that, his kit can kind of go either way. It's like, sure, they're like very comparable. I would say just for Primarch passive, you prefer to bring Wrath, but you'll probably end up running them together in anything that's not endgame, just because, bringing out cats from the backline is a pain in the ass unless you have a bunch of plain damage at the start of the fight to do it for you. Next up is the weapon, Galgalim of Gales. Bit of a tongue twister. This weapon's not very good, I'm gonna be honest. It's got stamina on it, which, sure, obviously you're not going to use as a grid weapon. Its first unique skill gives some very mediocre buffs, which are not that relevant, and its third skill, which is the one that actually matters. When your MC uses their first slot skill, they get double strike, an echo, and normal attack damage cap up. Now, if you're melee, you basically have the choices of Sumo, Monk, or Rune Slayer, and obviously Rune Slayer, you probably have some sort of specific goal in mind, so I'm not going to cover that. But looking at the weapon, most people would think of Sumo Bursting, where you stack a bunch of buffs onto your MC and then make use of Tag Team, but it's not that much of an upgrade over the very classic falsehood setup with Spartan. Obviously, falsehood setup with Spartan doesn't have to deal with the tag team animation, so you can just set up full auto and go make yourself a cup of tea without having to worry about it. But Sumo does have higher damage potential. But is it really worth borrowing this weapon alongside making sure you have Orologia, the new Providence summon, stoning that, and then making sure you also have Summer Galleon to like try and do a bit more damage? I would say that the investment is not particularly worth it. Although, I have done it myself because... yeah, Primal Wind Gang! This... oh my god. I could just be playing the Sparta, man. As for its use on Monk, Mana Diver exists, and that makes it a lot more difficult to justify running Monk, especially when Mana Diver gets double strike for 2 turns at the start of a fight. And Mana Diver also does what is colloquially known as a crap ton of damage. So, although Monk is pretty close, especially if you give it double strike, Mana Diver is going to, you know, keep up as long as the fight's not like 2-3 turns, and at that point you're talking about burst, and you probably don't really want to use Monk or Mana Diver for like straight burst unless you have a very specific setup. So yeah, overall this weapon's very narrow use for burst, which isn't full auto friendly. So it's a manual burst weapon, which also requires you to have other things, and the damage is not that much higher. Okay, well, we've touched on it, so let's talk about this year's Providence summon, Orologia. Orologia's main thing is giving our MC cool blue hair with the Transcendent Blue. So it replaces the first slot skill to Transcendent Blue, and clicking that skill does a big nuke, gives our MC a bunch of buffs. Now, getting it turn 1 on sub aura is very valuable for certain things. Like, for example, Dark Rapture 0, where they throw a big damage omen at you immediately. Being able to click Transcendent Blue and do a bunch of damage, make sure your MC is hitting for damage cap, assuming your grid's not total ass. That's very nice. And you can also use it for things like burst. There have been some people who have been showing meat farming setups with summoning that. Unfortunately, I don't have many other positives to say. Obviously, as a main summon, it's not that crazy. Actually summoning it, it gives the 6D supplemental damage buff, which is nice, but many people don't go out of their way to summon the 6D summon for their element, and it gives the MC Transcendent Blue for 1 turn, and then double strike and a full heal. That full heal is very nice for solos, but otherwise I don't really see it being used in things such as the endgame, just because summon slots are at a premium. You know, you could be running Lucifer, Baja, or like Quillin. There's so many choices. So unless you really need that like double strike for like an omen, it's not really something that you would prioritize. So that mostly leaves this as a sort of burst summon in a similar position to Yatima. Thing is that Yatima can get stronger with other summons, and we get other summons all the time, right? But Orologia can only really get stronger with MC classes and weapons that have a skill. They talk about the first slot skill. And Wrath Fist has not instilled me with confidence. So, although Orologia will be nice to have, and there will be setups that use it for burst, I can basically guarantee you that sumo stocks are going up because of Transcendent Blue. I don't really think that Orologia is going to be the insane must-stone that Bubs was, that 000 kind of was. It's not nearly on that level. And I think, if anything, it's probably the weakest Providence series, other than Belial, who just exists to sit in your sub-summon slots and give you a little bit of supplemental. Now on to the most controversial character of the banner, which is Indala, this year's Divine General, and, well, to say that people don't have a positive opinion of her would be a bit of an understatement. I, on the other hand, am a certified wind player, so I have seen this power once before. Wasn't afraid of it then, but I am afraid of it now. And I'm afraid because it's going to make Nightmare 250 take way more time than it probably has to. Indala is very Charlotta adjacent. You get skills that reset on CA, and she's very clicky, just like Charlotta. But she obviously is in a very different element. Charlotta, she was almost immediately useful, not only because her S1 is insane, but because she's an element that can easily spam charge attacks in endgame. Indala is not like that. Dark's charge attack support is kind of bad, which means she's also bad. And that is very unfortunate. The closest support Indala has is Magus, and that's just Toxiosis. Like, the other CA units, quote unquote, in Dark are like Vicky, Yggdrasil, Uni. You don't see a lot of use out of any of them. That's for a reason. Now, do I think that if she had charge attack support, that she would be good? Kind of. Her 5-turn cut to removable buffs is insane for Guild War, and her very slow pace is like, it's fine for Guild War Nightmare 250, and that's going to be her main use. And maybe if you don't mind watching 4 skills getting clicked every single turn, you can use her for your daily full autos. But even that isn't going to happen until we get charge attack support. My guess is they're gonna drop Serial before Guild War, and he will be some sort of battery with some sort of stack gimmick like the other Primarchs, ignoring Sandy. But as of now, I don't think Indala is usable, and although that is unfortunate, just with a little bit of support, she will be good at what she's pretty clearly designed for, which is Guild War. I wouldn't recommend trying to force her until support comes out. I've been seeing people try to run Vicky, running Kengo. It's all very cope. It's all very cope. And without making a charge attack every turn, she does threaten to fall asleep. So she is unfortunately very unusable as of current moment, but with just a few character releases, she probably will just blow out Guild War. And if you don't have her, you're going to be very behind the rest of the pack for day 3 and day 4. But people aren't really patient, unfortunately. So there's, you know, a lot of people who are talking about how bad she is. If you haven't gotten her and you're finishing off your Spark and you're wondering if you should pick her or, like, you know, Sandy or like Luo or something, I would pick her, definitely, to be safe. Because if you want to perform in Dark Guild War, your other options are very questionable, especially considering the direction that Nightmare 250 has gone. Stuff like Logia, they were good in the previous Guild War, but the previous Guild War didn't have a Giga buff, massive Guild War boss that didn't force you to Ogi loop every single turn. And she definitely fits the bill. And she has this insane ability to just make buffs go away. And I think that's going to be very valuable. Alright, that is more than enough yapping from me. I'm sure you guys don't want to hear my voice anymore, so I am going to keep it there for now. If Serial does come out and is a battery, I told you so, and oh my god, my voice is already strained. I haven't been talking for that long. So, yeah, I'll be going back into my hibernation. Tell me when my beautiful bat bow gets rebalanced. I can't wait for it to be good. Right? Anyway.